needed to back up a little bit to talk about some issues with the little mini lab on developing an Oregon coastal transportation data set and looking at stops and service areas. One of the things that bogged people down was the projection or unprojected information. So I had you download a file, one of the road files from a coastal county, and that road file, let me close this. When you unzipped it, what you saw was 3 files. One is the index file, the actual geometry or the shape file, and then the database, which would look like the Excel or the attribute table. You didn't have a projection file. And so the projection file is absolutely critical in order for you to have that shape file draw in the correct location. And so I was looking for some information about shapefiles, and one of the things I found was on Wiki. Esri's is really too long to talk about right here. But they talk about those 3 files that you saw as being mandatory, and then these other auxiliary or other files. And I take issue with that, because without the projection file, you cannot draw this data, or you cannot actually do anything with the data. So, and usually what you see is the projection file is listed as mandatory in most resources. So what you'll notice, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that unprojected or data. So when I pull that in, I see that there's an unknown spatial reference. And so I can go ahead and add it to the map, but when I try to measure anything, oh yeah, everything's grayed out, right? I can't do any measurements. If I look at the attributes, I don't have any linear units because it's a shapefile, so I could create one perhaps. Let's try that. Let's add a field called, let's do feet, because that's shorter. And there we go. So I've got feet. I'm going to try to calculate the geometry. And wait a minute, that's grayed out. So I'm getting an indication here there's a problem. When I look at the properties, the projection or the coordinate system properties, it says, oh, it's undefined. I don't have any information here, no linear units, nothing. So good clue that I need to fix that. So one thing people did was they just took this file and imported it into a feature data set that had a projection. And if you do that, your data still will not line up, because you first have to define this projection or define this spatial reference system, so that when you convert it or when you import it into the feature data set, the correct mathematical transformations can be applied. Without any starting point information that's associated with the shapefile now, those corrections or those transformations will not work. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And one of the things, because I put in an undefined projection, if I look at my feature or if I look at my table of contents, this is also undefined. So that's kind of a problem, but we can fix that later. Okay, so now I'm going to open up the properties, and in older versions of ArcGIS there was a button or a tab called Define Projection, which is very different than from reprojecting or projecting. We're just telling the computer, or we're telling the system, what was used when this data was created. Okay, so I can't make up anything I want. I have to go find the information. So when I looked at the transportation website, luckily, they provided that information for me. Now, when I look at this, I don't see projection information, although that says projection information, what I see is that the data is in a geographic coordinate system, and the units are angular degrees. I don't see anything about the projection type or linear units. So when I go into this table, I see two options. And so I'm going to go into the geographic coordinate system, and it says the datum is North America. North American. So I'm going to go in here till I find something that says North American. Aha. And do I see anything that is NAD? Yeah, NAD 1927. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that and choose OK. Now, when I add my shapefile, I don't get that warning. When I look at the properties, I can see that nothing has changed. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it has the geographic reference system set here, geographic coordinate system, degrees. So that is perfect. Now I can export that and put it into my feature data set, and now the data can be correctly transformed. So they look like oh wait a minute, they don't line up at all. Look at that, there's that one. So there's my original, and there's that one. Let's zoom to that layer. Okay, so, decimal degrees. Aha, yes, remember that problem I said when you add your first layer, your data frame takes on the projection of the first layer, and the first layer was undefined. So now I have to set the projection of the table of contents. There we go. Now if I zoom to layer, I should be in better shape. There we go. And they're both right on top of each other, which is perfect. That's what I wanted. Okay, so just a couple things. I'm going to remove the one I defined. How do I know that I'm right? Well, one way is I went into properties and I set general. Nope, I did not. Yes, I did. General into degrees, minutes, and seconds. And now when I hover over this area, I say, okay, that's in the right spatial location that I expected, because I know this area. If I didn't know the area, one thing you can do is add, where's my add button? I can add a base map or another layer that I know is correct and see how well my defined data or transformed data aligns. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. I'm going to turn on the layers, and they line up really well. So whenever I do any kind of projection, definition, or alignment, I always make sure I add a known correct data layer and then try to line it up that way. If you had gone into your undefined shapefile and chosen the wrong projection or the wrong reference information, so I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I think it must be in an Oregon system. I'm going to pick that. Oh, that's Alabama. That's not going to work. Where is, there we are, state systems. Go down here. Isn't it great? Oregon gets their own folder. I'm going to say, well, I want to work in this projected coordinate system, so I'm going to choose that one. Choose OK. So when I add the data, I'm not seeing it here. Make the roads a little wider. Still not seeing it. So why don't I see where it put it? So I'm going to zoom to layer. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's not even close. Well, it's kind of close, but it must be so small. Yeah. So when you assign an incorrect definition or an incorrect reference system, your data will not draw in the right place. So I would go back to your road data and double check that the road data you created is in the right location. Okay. The other thing now is I now have a feet field because I created that before I exported it. And if I go to calculate geometry, those fields are now open and I can actually do that. And if I look at the properties of projection information, I can see that I have linear units. So with linear units, I can do analysis. With angular degrees, I can't do any analysis.